So finally, after all these years, Donald Trump has been taken off of Twitter. And for what? Let's check out what the Twitter blog has to say. So on their article about the permanent suspension of Donald Trump, here's what they have to say. After close review of recent tweets from @RealDonaldTrump and the context around them, specifically how they're being received and interpreted on and off Twitter, we have permanently suspended the account due to risk of further incitement of violence. And they go on to cite the Capitol Hill riots that happened on Wednesday. And so let's look at the tweet that they said incited enough violence for Donald Trump to be indefinitely banned off Twitter. On January 8th, 2021, President Donald J. Trump tweeted, "The 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated fairly in any way, shape, or form. To all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. These were 2 tweets, by the way. But the first question I think should be asked is, how exactly does this incite violence? All he said is that they will have a voice into the future. He never said, take back the Capitol, it's ours! You know, like, what? What? And it's mind-blowing. And then in another tweet, all he said was he's not going to the inauguration, presumably because he's salty. Like, and Twitter's reasoning on this is entirely insane? Is that the best word I can use to describe it? They cite the fact that due to ongoing tensions that they must be read in context. But I mean, this does not seem like any of the supposedly harmful rhetoric that even the news has been citing for as to why all these crazy things have been happening. He's just saying that the MAGA movement will have a voice in the future and that they shouldn't be treated unfairly. But the point is, I guess, that Twitter thinks that this somehow incites violence. And the scary thing about this is that at what point does it stop? I mean, way back in like 2015, there were people saying that with the like alt-right personalities being banned off of social media, that was the start of the slippery slope. And I have to say I agree, because at what point is it gonna stop? I mean, we went from fringe legitimate Nazis being banned for saying awful things, and that now we are currently at the point where a private corporation is basically having the authority to shut the President of the United States off from being able to communicate. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. Where does it stop? The most powerful man in the entire planet has been barred from communicating. And I know, but there's there are other platforms. Okay, but where is he going to get the reach if not on Twitter and Facebook? Because he's banned indefinitely from both of those. He could go to Parler, but as I'm going to discuss, the Parler app has been removed from the Google Play Store, and Apple is considering removing it as well. So what is he supposed to do? And I just don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so further on in the assessment as to why they think this incites violence. President Trump's statement that he will not be attending the inauguration is being received by a number of his supporters as further confirmation that the election was not legitimate, and is seen as him disavowing his previous claim made via the 2 tweets. Okay. What? I've been through quite a bit of my Twitter feed, and I have not seen even the comments saying that those tweets are telling people we gotta fight. If anything, a lot of the Trump supporters I've seen are saying, oh, well, I guess it's over. Cool. Let's just pack up, I guess. Or they're calling him like a little pussy for just conceding and just giving up, I guess. But, I mean, how are those tweets in any way different from literally everything else Trump has said to his supporters throughout the 4 years he's been president? They're not. Trump's constantly been spewing out stuff like, we have this big voice, we have this massive movement. He exaggerates a lot. That's what he does. It just, I don't know. This is kind of scary stuff. It really is, because now that the president's been censored, nobody's off the table. There's no one more powerful, no one that theoretically would have enough authority to say no now that they've done this. This is a private corporation with the authority to shut down the leader of a country. This is dystopia. This is what a corporatist hellhole looks like. But anyway, so in addition, he's been banned from Facebook, as the Washington Post says here. And I mean, I don't even think there's a specific post. Let me just see. No, there isn't. All it is Mark Zuckerberg has been saying that they're banning him indefinitely because he's had some dramatic escalation, which I guess the Capitol would be a pretty big escalation, but at the same time, he literally said on the day of the Capitol building riot, go home in peace. Like, leave. This isn't right. He denounced it almost instantly. He said go home. And you know what Twitter did? Twitter censored that. I was watching in real time when Donald Trump posted his response to people breaking in the Capitol, and what Twitter did was they blocked people from sharing that tweet, they blocked people from commenting on it or liking it. You could not do anything. You could just see it if you went to his page, but you could not spread it around. You could not spread the president denouncing the violence and telling the violent rioters to go home. Come on, that's ridiculous. But anyway, as the journalist Andy No points out on Twitter, they still allow violent far-left extremists to organize, promote, and say crazy things on Twitter's platform, but the president gets banned for saying that the movement will still have hope and a voice in the future. This is such a ridiculous double standard that it's something something should be done about it. Like, this is not okay, because Twitter and social media are effectively the modern town square. Back in the day when, let's say, like early America, if you wanted to go yell about why the British should still be ruling over us and why the Revolutionary War was wrong and why we never should have signed the Declaration of Independence, you were welcome to do that. That was your First Amendment right. And back then, what that meant was I can go to the town square, I can go out in public, and I can shout my rabble, shout my nonsense all day long. People can choose to listen or they can walk away. The point is, you're not being censored from saying what you think. And the problem today that we face is the town square is no longer where people go to share their ideas. That's not where people talk anymore. Where people are talking and having discussions, albeit absolutely crappy ones on Twitter, is social media. That's where you go. The internet is the modern town square where you go to share ideas. And when you engage in censorship like this, like we've been seeing for the past 5 years, what you get from that is a slow, just ignorance of what other people actually think. Back when Alex Jones was first nuked from the entire internet, basically, that whole section of people that listened to him were now cut off from the rest of the internet with all their other opinions. And when Alex Jones made his own personal website to continue posting exactly what he had been before, although now that he's on his own website, he didn't have to obey by all the rules the other websites have, so it's even more extreme. After he'd done that, all of his supporters went there and made their own echo chamber. And this is bad because it further divides us. And you see this with people on like Facebook and Twitter. Certainly, you have come across a post that when you see it, all you can think is, how does this person believe this? I can think of several pieces of evidence that completely contradict what they're saying. And the reason we have that is because these echo chambers are furthering this divide. And eventually, that's going to make things become even worse than they already are. And now that you've banned the president, you've told, even as Donald Trump has said, there are 75 million Americans that supported him. And now that they can't hear what the president says, what do they have to think about their own beliefs? That the person that they voted for and whose policies they presumably agreed with is now not allowed to express a single opinion on the big websites. That is basically trying to put out a fire with a flamethrower. That is ridiculous. Like, the only way that speech is really countered and de-radicalized is by being confronted. When you had crazy people like Richard Spencer that were still on the platform back in the day, when they spewed their crazy nonsense, people were able to directly challenge that and comment on it and just say, hey man, this is where you're wrong, or just insult him and give him pushback. Pushback is important, even if it's a hate comment, because that is, it's a measure to show kind of if you've overstepped your bounds. Same as if you were to go on stage to a crowd of people, go on your microphone and say something extremely unpopular, they're gonna boo you, and instantly you're gonna know, hey, maybe I've gone off the edge here, maybe I've gone too far. But when you cut people off of public platforms, well, not public, I guess, but when you cut people off of widely used platforms, you're forcing them into the fringes and into their own echo chambers where they will inevitably become more radical because they do not have pushback. This is not a good time right now. And the other argument that a lot of people tend to say is, well, okay, don't like it, Twitter can have their rules because they're a private company. So go find your own platform. Go do it there. Well, guess what? Parler has been removed from Google Play, and Apple Store is considering it as well. And I've heard this basically explained as the Digital Cartel is now coming after all their enemies, because the power that these corporations like Twitter, Google, and Facebook have is a lot more than I think most people realize. Outside of those three, where do people really go on the internet for social media or video sharing? Places like BitChute exist, but where are you going to go? You're not. So effectively, you've just excommunicated, shoved out a bunch of people, and told them, you are a terrible person. And now they're gonna go find those fringe areas with the people that they actually wanted to listen to, and they're gonna fall into that echo chamber and keep spiraling down into the extremism, as I already talked about. And even if you want to find an alternative social media, as shown here, they can just bar your access from it. Because how many people use social media on a laptop or a PC? Not a lot. Most of social media is off of your phone because that's just convenient. That's quick. That's where most of people go to scroll. Like, so it's completely absurd. It's crazy to think that this is currently happening. And it's man, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Because this is, now you really have to start thinking, who are they going to come for next? First, it was legitimately extreme right people, actual Nazis. Then they blanket termed anyone left of center as the alt-right, and then they started picking them off as well. And now they've come for the president. Basically, everyone on the right is now in danger of being wiped out of the internet and not having a voice. And I think that is absolutely wrong. I think that's terrible. Because we need pushback. We need alternative opinions to keep ourselves in check. If you go spewing around random nonsense and no one questions it, why would you have any reason to believe that what you've said is wrong? If all the heads in the room are nodding, why would you have a thought in your head that's saying, hey, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe this idea I have has a different angle that could be explored. But no. This will create an echo chamber, and the cultural divide that we have seen in this country will only be driven further by this. I don't know what else to say. It's crazy, it's dystopian, it's almost reminiscent of like 1984. It's just ridiculous that we could live in this time. But I guess that's just that. If you want to accept this, then you also have to accept the fact that eventually they will probably come for you as well. Because as we've seen over the past, not even just the 4 years, ever since all the like woke talking points became mainstream, it has been a purity contest on places like Twitter. People get called conservative and right just for disagreeing with one single opinion. You have all these YouTube personalities that are constantly being mischaracterized as like conservatives or on the right, when in their own content they will outright say, I am center left, or I am a socialist on a lot of issues. And this is just an issue. This is a big problem that it clearly hasn't been addressed. It's clearly escalating. This does nothing to remedy what happened in the Capitol building. because I've heard it described like this. So it's kind of like if you're in a bar and one guy is setting out to have a fight with you, and he's talking all this crap. He's saying, "Hey man, F you, like, I'm gonna beat your ass." And then you look at him and say, "Okay." And then you turn your back. And then as the guy is walking out the door, you take a beer bottle and you throw it at him. This is effectively what that's done, because the riots on Capitol Hill happened. And then Donald Trump issued a condemnation of what was going on, and he told the rioters to leave in peace and not do that. And then, what does Twitter do in response? Banned. Done. Out of here. You really think that acting in hostility like this is going to ease the tensions? I don't support rioting, but people are going to be angry about this. People support the guy, and now you've just nuked him off the web. So now people are going to be even more angry than they already were before. There's no cooldown. You've just kicked the hornet's nest even more.